Hello, welcome to the beginner tutorial series for Godot Game Engine. This is the second video, and we'll focus on this video the tree structure, the scenes and nodes that are used throughout Godot to pretty much do everything. As we saw last video, we have a 2D and 3D rendering engines. For now, we'll focus on 2D, but we'll get to 3D fairly early, actually. To the left here, we can see there's a text saying create root node. So Godot is basically asking you to define what is the root, what is the beginning point of the scene. And the scene is, as you can see here at the top, like you can add a bunch of tabs. These are scenes, and the scene itself is a container of nodes. It's something that has many nodes inside. Each scene has the base node or root node, and you can define it using these buttons here. Since we'll be starting with 2D, let's just create a 2D scene. Now you can see that it's blue over here, it's blue over here, it's called node 2D, because this node contains and encapsulates information regarding 2D scenes and 2D things. For example, to the right, I can see all the properties, all the information that it's contained within this node. So this node, which is of type node 2D, has, you can see here, node 2D, has a transform, which has a position, rotation, and scale, and a z-index, which is useful for putting two 2D nodes behind each other. And fairly soon, I'll go through what's below this. In the scene tree, I can create more. If I click Ctrl D, it will try to create a duplicate. However, this is the scene tree. I can't actually have two root nodes in a scene tree. So this is why this alert is showing. To add a child, or basically something inside this node, you can right click and add child node, or just use this plus button here, and it will prompt up this window for you to decide what node needs to be inside. We'll go through all the types, not all, but many of the types fairly soon, but for now, let's just create another node 2D. So now I have a node 2D inside another node 2D, which basically means each node 2D, remember, has a position, rotation, and scale, and z-index, and that's all. A node 2D is here. I can click and move it. As you can see here to the right, I'm moving its position. I can use these gizmos here, or this widgets, to define if I want to just move it, if I want to rotate it, if I want to scale it. For example, if I want to change the scale, this gizmo appears where the node 2D is. I can just use that to change the scale. But the node 2D itself doesn't have any information inside, right? Like, it's just a point here in somewhere. Let's just make something more interesting. I have already, this comes with all projects, this icon.png, which is the logo of Godot. Just drag and drop here. And now I suddenly have an image in my game. You can see that I'm doing all sorts of scaling weirdness with it because scale is selected over here. And you can check here how the scale changes while I move my mouse. I can, of course, change it to move or to rotate, to change different parameters of this image. However, as you can see here, the image which comes with this little icon here, which signifies it's a sprite, you can see here to the left, to the right, sprite, is inside this node 2D, which basically means it's a child. By being a child, it inherits or it uses the information of the parent in itself. what does this actually mean? In the parent node, if I change the position here, but 0, you see it also moves the icon that is below it. However, if I move the icon itself, you see that the node 2D is still over here, which is the parent. Now I'm moving this one. Now I'm moving this one. This is extremely useful for many different applications. If you, for example, have a body, I'll call this a body. And let's say I'll move it to the middle. I'll say this is the head of my body. I can come here to transform. I'll just put 0, 0, and 1 scale. Oops. 1 scale, and the rotation, I rotated the body, if you remember well. So just change this to 1, 2, and no rotation. Now I have my head. I just double clicked here to rename it head. So my head, let's say it should be above where the body is. If the body is here, my head will be above it. Now I can click in body and add another icon. And I'll just say this is the torso. For example, I can use the scaling effect to scale it a little bit. Click move again. And now I have a torso. Now, if I have torso selected and move selected, I only move the torso. Ctrl Z to go back. If I click the body and move it, now I move everything at the same time. If I rotate the body, I'll rotate the entire thing at the same time. This will be extremely useful in the very near future. Okay, so now I have a scene, which is unsaved for now. The scene is of node 2D, which contains a body, which contains a head and a torso. When the head and torso are like that, we say they are siblings, because the same idea of child, parent, siblings is the name we give them. I can add different bodies. I can click here and Ctrl D to duplicate the body and say I want this body to come over here, and I'll just go to the right and say the rotation should be 0. So now I have 2 bodies. However, now we'll go what a scene is and how powerful having multiple scenes is for Godot. You can see here that in my scene I have 2 bodies, but let's say I wanted to add a leg to all the bodies. Now I needed to go in here, drag the icon again, or whatever the texture, the image of my leg is. I'll need to drop it here. I'll need to click in the icon, say this is a leg, and I'll put a leg here using scale and rotation. And this is the left leg, right? If it's looking at me, this is the left leg. And let's say the left leg should be behind the torso. So what I can do is just put it above. So now, since I put the leg above the torso will be in front of it. Now, how do I actually put this leg in my second body? Of course, I can simply duplicate and put it here, but let's say I have 5,000 bodies. Now this gets really tedious. What I can do actually is, instead of having multiple body nodes, I can have multiple body scenes, which is a scene by itself. So what I can do here is right click. I can say save branch as scene. So now I can just define what is my new scene name. I'll click save. It will appear here in my Explorer. If I double click, I'll go to a new scene. You can see here, this is a new scene called body, where I have the head, the leg, and the torso. Let's do another leg. I'll Control D to duplicate. Sure, leg 2. I'll just rotate it to the other side and move it. And now I have another leg. If I save here, this scene, and now go back to the previous scene, you'll see that now in this scene, the new leg is already here. Why that is? You can see here in the very right corner that there is like a scene link, basically saying that this node here is not just a node by itself. It's a node that is actually another scene. This basically means that I can have multiple scenes in the same scene. It's like another tree structure. So the advantage of doing this is that now I can delete this body and just have multiple scenes. I can even drag and drop from here onto here. For example, like this. Like this. And I also can use, instead of using a child node, I can use this button or right click and instance child scene, which basically means I want an instance of one other scene that I have. So I have the body one, and now I have 3 bodies, which I'll just move around. Say this body comes here and this body goes there. Now for the magic. If I go back to the body scene, which only has that specific body, I can now create, say, an arm. I'll duplicate again 2 times, say arm and arm 2. I'll put it in a reasonable place, and this one as well. Sure, like this. Maybe like this. Okay, and now if I save it, back here, all my instances are updated. So this is now to the naming of things. This is an instance of the scene, and this is the scene. So I define how my scene should be like, and now here, every instance of that scene will be exactly the same as the original one. Now, for some even more special things, you notice that here, the position of my body is this one. So I'll just go tell my position to be 0, and now it'll go to the 0 position of my 2D view here. This is 0, this is a positive Y, and this is like this, positive Y goes down, and to the right is a positive X. So it moves to the right. If you click here, you can type anything as I had done, or you can also click and drag to change the value little by little. But let's say this is 0 and this is 0. Oops. Save, Control S to save. Going back here, now I can see that my original body went to the 0 position. But why didn't these two? This is another powerful thing of differentiating between instance scene and instance of the scene. So this instance of the scene has a different position of my original one, which means that now I have here what every scene must be like, and here I can say, okay, this body in specific should change this way from the other bodies. And in my case here, it's changing the position. So I have 3 different positions for 3 different bodies. If this is confusing to you, that's no problem. We'll go much more through what scene, node, and other relevant information from Godot are next video. For now, though, I will talk about different types of nodes that we have. For now, we're just using this circle type, which is a Node2D type, and this little happy face type, which is a sprite. If you see here to the right, a sprite node has an image, which is this texture thing, a normal map, which we'll see in the future what it is about, but it's also related to the image, an offset, which can basically flip around the image, animation, if you want to change the image on the fly to do animations, for example, someone running, and what is the region, so basically the size, another way of saying the size. It's not enabled, so you can ignore this for now. And finally, this is important, the sprite also has all the information from the Node2D. So why does the sprite and Node2D appear here, even though I'm looking at the sprite? If you come here to help, go to search and type in sprite, you can see here like a lot of information about everything that is in Godot. Just double click in Sprite and you'll see here that the class Sprite inherits from Node2D. This basically means that everything that Node2D has, which is the transform and z-index, also appears in the sprite. And this goes on further. Everything that a canvas item has will also appear in Node2D and Sprite. So this is why you see here canvas item on the bottom, on the right. You go further, the node is to the right, and then object. The node can give you like some kind of description, and object doesn't actually give you anything. These two are more towards how Godot does things. You can use this arrow here to go back and forth of what you just selected. And here you can also see that we are in the script tab. So this is why I'm seeing text instead of a window with drawings on it. So other types of nodes, you can click here to add child and investigate and use this description to try to understand a little bit more of the different types of nodes that Godot gives you. Each node gives you a different functionality, and each node also gives you the ability of doing something that you won't need to implement by yourself. You don't need to create code or create logic to make that work by yourself. For example, here in the Node2D type, so category, like a folder, I have like a number of things. Just an example, there is this collision shape, which helps us do physics. If you want to have gravity, for example, in Mario, we have gravity, that Mario goes down. I will use this in the very near future to do things like that. If I want a light, here it is, how to make lights. If I want a mesh, which basically means it's not a square image, it's like a polygon with strange shape, you can use this. Navigation will help you create enemies to go back and forth in your level. This one helps you with the background. What's your background and how it moves when your character moves. Particles helps you do, say, for example, a fire or like explosions, or imagine many small textures appearing at once and disappearing. We'll have a lot of fun with this in the near future. Paths, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of things that we'll go through here in the 2D side of things, but you can also see that there are more. In spatial, which is the red category, is the 3D side of things. And in the green category, which is control, focuses on GUI or UI, or basically how to make buttons and texts and your score labels, or how much score you have at that point of your game. You use this green style node. Little by little, we'll go through everything. for now, next video, we'll try to make this body move. For now, this is all. See you next time.